What is going on, RotoGrinders? Dean here. It's Dean7904 if you want to get all technical. I mean, it's 5:30 in the East Coast, 2:30 in the West Coast, 4:30 Tennessee time. Of course, that was just time for the flagship show here at RotoGrinders. It's called Grinderslive. Joining me today, Monster Slate, intimate show, just the two of us, myself and Jordan. Y'all know him as Blunder. What's going on, Blunder? How are things in your world?
My neck hurts from I don't know, from sleeping bad. That's what's going on in my world from putting in my conviction stacks. I'm afraid of going to jail. They're my conviction stack. I think, is that what you call them? Is that why they're called conviction stacks?
Is that
you
new?
Play them and you go to DFS jail.
Is that what you're going to be doing the screen share? And I don't know if you're going to be showing yours off or not. As far as the lineup HQ it's called conviction stacks. Is that one of the Cheese of course has his core plays. The STL cards has his tournament plays. Tuttle's got his value plays, and you'll be seeing two of those guys on the next show. If you guys are premium members, with Kevin Roth, of course, as well, too. Roth will talk about the weather. And I think it's Cheese and Tuttle. It's funny. I asked Devin before the show. I should remember. I'm fairly certain that's who it is. Two of those three. But I'm fairly certain the combination is Cheese and Tuttle as far as the premium show later on today. But your conviction stacks, are you feeling good about stacks today? Because I saw a schedule. I'm like, I love that Blender's in the show today because it feels really, really wide open. There's a bunch of guys that I'm perfectly fine landing on. But I don't have this clear, this is my starting point. This is what I'm building, and I love, love, love this. Like some stuff. Don't really love a lot. What's your take on that?
I think for pitching, you're probably playing at least one of the top two pitching options. I think that's more of a clear path. But for the batting options, there's no one stack that really stands out. Like the Dodgers have the highest total, but they're expensive. We have a lot in the low fives, high fours. We have some cheap stacks. We have some expensive stacks. I think the ownership is going to be spread out enough that I'm not necessarily looking at I got to X this stack out because they're too owned. And I could say the same thing in pitcher. I don't think anything's going to be so far off key that you could play lineups even with the quote chalk because the chalk isn't going to be that chalk.
Yeah, the ownership projections up in front of you as well, too. Of course, those are, we're an hour and a half until first picks. They get more and more refined as more information comes out. Information is fluid, obviously. But I'm curious. I haven't taken a look yet at the ownership percentages. I'm curious to see where things are at because, obviously there's two, two big-name pitchers. I guess two big-name pitchers. You got to have two at the top. And it's not like it was yesterday. We loved it yesterday. That's not a victory lap. Everybody loved the top guys yesterday. They all went nuts. Kershaw, the Biebs. Bieber is awesome, by the way. That guy's legit. I hope he doesn't get hurt. He looks awesome. But, as far as today's slate, before we do that, Blender, let's go ahead and mention the Sharp Side app. We'll give a little shout out to that. My official pick yesterday was a loser. My apologies. I had San Diego. That did not work out. Looked good in the fifth. I was doing some fist pumps and, victory laps and all that.
Well, but Trent Grissom screwed you. If you saw that game, he jumped for a fly ball, hit off his glove, and they scored 3 runs off of it.
Yeah, and he also he hit a ball 410 feet to center field or whatever it was. He on the warning track. I thought he was going to get a homer, but it did not work out for me, unfortunately. But I don't think he did it on purpose. I don't take it personal.
Yes, he did it because of you.
Oh, he's got Sharp Side. Look, we want to end that streak tonight. Sorry, boys. I got to take care of this. Priorities. We're going to bounce back. We're taking Sam Fran. That's my pick tonight. And Sam Fran's one of my favorite stacks. And, we have the which is probably a sentence I have not said since the Bonds era. And I wasn't even playing DFS back then. You got to stack Bonds and Matt Williams and Jeff Kent, of course, right? Yeah.
And Will Clark.
Yes. Well, Will Clark was before those dudes, I think.
Maybe I'm a little bit older.
You're dating yourself. We're all dating. We're both dating ourselves with those names. Maybe the chat will throw out some random Giants names.
Willie McCovey.
Well, no, that's even further back. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure Willie McCovey. Francisco at that point.
Pretty sure Willie McCovey was never drafted in DFS. Fairly certain that did not happen. How much would Bonds be at home versus in Coors Field versus a terrible righty?
7,800.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And I'd pay for it every single time. I see a couple questions in chat there on YouTube. What's up, chat? They're asking why.
Someone's asking. I just want to highlight this because it was talked about in the bat chat often. Doug Montgomery asks, how come umpire data is not in HQs? Because we don't have the announcement on the umpire crews yet. And they're not this year. They're not required to do so as early as we used to. So the feeds for who's going to be the umpires, we don't get until 5 minutes before the game sometimes. So you're going to see them when we get them. But outside of that, yeah, 3 days of the week, you're not going to know what they are.
I got two of them. We have two of the umpires, and the other important part, it's worth saying, like once we get it for one day and it's a series, it just rotates, so you know where the next day it's easy, obviously. But the first day of the series, you don't really know who the umpire is going to be. But we have. Hold on a second. Do you have a lineup HQ up in front of you? I have the same umpire for two separate games.
No, it's because of the two pitchers. It's because they're using openers, so we have 4 pitchers for that game. He's not in the name. Lentz is not in 2 places today.
I mean, yeah, there's a little multiplicity action going on. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. How close are these ballparks? But yeah, we do have an extreme hitters umpire today in Baltimore. That's all we got. Interesting, because they played yesterday. There you go. That's the reason why. And I guess, it's a Friday. They generally start a lot of series on Fridays. So that makes sense. All right. Give me the nature of the slate, because, again, I think, again, you're a tournament guy. You love leverage. You love to play all your ownership percentages and take stands and, things like that. And this feels like a slate where basically, I don't want to steer your line, but don't worry about ownership too much, because just play the guys you like. Because I don't think we're going to see monster ownership numbers as far as a hitting perspective. Pitchers, it's going to condense, of course. Is that your general thoughts? Are you still kind of waiting for the numbers more and more to become more refined, but where are you at on that?
Well, I think that the only thing that I could be certain of is that your constructions that include 2 top pitchers, if you're going to play Nola and Buehler together, lineups are going to look very similar. You're going to see a lot of giants in those lineups. Like you think in terms of how the construction has to go. If you're going to try to play a 37% owned Nola, 34% owned Buehler, and the giant stack is going to come in at 10% owned aggregate, like that's going to be a chalky GPP lineup. So be more inclined that you don't play Nola and Buehler together with a giant stack. You change a pitcher, or you play a giant stack, but you play part of the bottom of the order, or something like the ownership is spread out enough that if you're playing a top pitcher and then a 10% owned pitcher, and like your stack and your 3-man or your one-offs, you're probably going to have enough leverage. I really don't see. Even at the hitter ownership, we don't have any hitter projected to be more than 15% owned. So like the stack, think in terms of stacking with 5 guys, even if there are, let's say they're average 10% owned, 10 times 10 times 10 times the year. You're already at like one of 1,000 lineups like that, 1 out of 1,000. So that means that would be like 20 lineups like that in a large field GPP. And then you add the 30% owned pitcher. Like there's just not going to be enough ownership that, I know I'm the type of person that play game theory wise leverage more than anything, but this is the type of slate where I'm really just rolling with the teams that project well, that have high ceilings, maybe take some shots on some cheap pitchers that may go under-owned so I could get expensive stacks, and then not necessarily worry that much about ownership.
All right, I dropped the weather update from Roth. He updated around 5:20. I dropped it in the chat there, YouTube. Feel free to like and subscribe. Also, much appreciate that. He says it's about to fully pour in Atlanta, which I presume is happening right now because this was written 20 minutes ago. It's yellow-orange. It looks like, that's not too alarming, and hopefully, well, you go ahead and read it for yourself. But as of right now, I'm going to work on the assumption that the game's good to go. Of course, Roth will be on crunch time at 6:30, give you guys the most up-to-date update all the way up to 7 o'clock and tell you guys what to do. But that's super important because Aaron Nola's pitching today. He's been one of the best pitchers in baseball this year. The strikeout rate, it's a small sample, obviously, but spiked up to 39.8% so far this year. The walks at 4.3%. That is amazing. And this Atlanta team he's facing is not the same old Atlanta Braves. There's no more Kekis in there. I know he got the back in, but he's not available today, or he's not playing today. A lot of strikeouts there in that lineup. Ozuna, Duvall, Riley, Camargo. This season striking at a 25.2% collectively. Inciarte's a contact guy, and Freeman a bit of contact as well too this season, 16.4%. Of course, he's a big power bat too. But, how do you not play Nola, especially considering we talked about it yesterday, there was 4 or 5 like really good options. After Nola, and we'll talk about Buehler in a second too, I think it falls off the table pretty quickly. Of course, that limits the scale you can spend up on your bats. But, well, let's start with Nola first. I don't know if you play FanDuel or mostly focus on DK. I think you mostly focus on DK.
Mostly right? On DK, but Buehler is obviously a better option on FanDuel because he's much cheaper. He's at Nola's like 10.7. and Buehler's 8.5. So
Mm-hmm.
Buehler's going to be the SP chalk on FanDuel. Nola is going to be the chalk on DraftKings, and I'll be under on Nola. I think the story between Nola and Buehler, if you ask me who's the more talented pitcher, I'm going to say Walker Buehler every time. I think he's one of the most talented pitchers in all of baseball.
Well, who's the better form is the question. Is the other question.
That's called recency bias. This is, if I can't leverage ownership based on, because everything's kind of spread out, like the thing I could do is, I don't want to play like at the field of these guys. Like I either want to take a stand more on one or the other. And Buehler obviously was on a pitch count the first 2 starts. So that limited his upside, people didn't play him, and he didn't put up great scores. He had 1 bad start. So I think recency bias-wise, people are going to be less on Buehler and more on Nola, who obviously in the 4 starts this year has been electric. But I prefer Buehler's matchup against the Rockies in Dodger Stadium because the Rockies are a bad team. They're one of the lowest WRC plus teams in baseball, but they just happen to play in the best park. So when they're out of Coors Field, I want to target them. If this was last year and Buehler was going to pitch 115 pitches, Buehler would be 11-8 in this spot right now. So if I think he could go 95 pitches, maybe 100, I mean, he's gotten up to 90, and he's going to be lower owned than Nola. I mean, not going to be unowned, but I'm talking about on DraftKings. Obviously on FanDuel, you may do the other way around. But on DraftKings, I think I'm more likely to play more of Buehler. It doesn't mean I fade Nola completely, but it just means I play less of them.
Yeah, and I'm going to spend up, assuming the weather is good to go, on FanDuel, just have some Nola lineups as well. And look, you're right. As far as recency bias, as far as Buehler, but the other part is, like you said, they babied him. Started the season through 56 pitches his first start, then 79, then 87 and 89. And a couple of starts, he wasn't very good either. It wasn't necessarily like his pitch count was getting high. It's they had to get him the hook in the middle of innings. He did not complete 5 his last time. They pulled him in the middle at 89 pitches. Previous to that, he almost got to 6 through 87 pitches. Actually, was good. That was his best start of the season. Dave Roberts, to my knowledge, is still his manager. Maybe 95 pitches or something like that. The Dodgers are thinking long game, like they're going to make the playoffs. Spoiler alert, that's going to happen. So they don't necessarily need Buehler to go out there and throw 110, 105. And like you said, he can get there in 95 or even 100. On DK, the price is more expensive for Buehler, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But like you said, you can leverage that on DK, and the ownership's going to reflect that. What do we have as far as the ownership on DK specific, Buehler versus Nola? I'm curious what that is.
Well, I mean, we have DK 37% for Nola, Buehler 34%. I think the split will be wider than that.
I agree.
I think, it all depends on the weather that's going on in Philadelphia and Atlanta in that game. But I mean, we saw the last time that, a lot of players from that Nationals Braves game ended up chalk regardless of the weather risk. So I don't see Nola being probably less than 40% owned. I think you're going to see Nola Buehler lineups. That's why I said for GPPs, if you're looking for like vomit stacks in order to play that, like be very careful because you may be playing a chalk tournament lineup that I don't want to, but I'm more interested in the vomit pitchers this slate.
There's a lot of vomit arms. Let's go to them because if you make the decision and you say, hey, I'm not going to be with the field for Nola, I'm not going to be with the field for Buehler, you still have to roster other pitchers. And again, it's kind of slim pickings really fast. We're talking about Robbie Ray, who's, if you've seen his splits this year, and again, I don't want to overreact over like one season or 4 or 5 starts, whatever it is, but his walks are in 18%. Is that what his walks are at? It's egregious. No ground balls, like all fly balls, all walks. It's one of the reasons why I like the Giants. He gives up a lot of homers too. And then what you want to talk about Haney, where's a bunch of power righties for Oakland. Colby Allard, Plutko, McCullers, who I'm still not really sure, and he's kind of pricey and his K rating's down, but I think he's a pretty good pitcher. Duffman versus Minnesota. Their lineup doesn't look as good as it normally does. There's a couple guys missing there, but and he was good. This is his 3rd time facing him this year, I believe, and he's kind of sort of someone interesting for tournaments as an SP2 on DK for me. You tell me, you talk about vomit arms, and he doesn't make you vomit. Just I just don't love this matchup against Oakland. But, those fly balls can die in the warning track, and he'll be perfectly fine. Who's your favorite non-Nola or Buehler arm?
You didn't even mention him.
Is it Marjavicius?
Yes.
Oh,
Nick Marjavicius, 5,700 facing the Rangers.
I mean, if I faced the Rangers, they would smash me.
Okay, so he's facing the Rangers in Seattle. The Rangers bats that I'm worried the most about are lefties. Nick Marjavicius is a lefty. He's a horrible pitcher. I mean, I know that. But he could pitch 5 or 6 innings, get 5 or 6 strikeouts for 5,700, give me 16 points. And that's all I need. What do I need for 5,700?
Well, that'd be great. I mean, you can't just will that into existence, but for sure, I would love to lock in 16 points for my SB2 at that asking price. But he's not been good. He doesn't strike anybody out. Like I know
he struck out. Look, I'll bring him up. He struck out. Look, I'll game log watch.
Well, I mean,
1-4-3-3. Okay, so it's not all that much.
First of all,
the 3 strikeouts in 3 innings, 4 strikeouts in 2 innings. 1 strikeout into because he only pitched a couple of innings.
Well, he's got a 16.9% K rate since the start of the 2019 season. But
Texas has a 1,000,000% K rate. It'll go up.
Okay, it might go up to 20, and and he's not good. Like even when he's not striking guys out, but again, it's baseball and weird things can happen. We see like catchers go in there and mop up in the 9th, and it's like a 20-run lead, and they'll get a 1-2-3. Like these things happen all the time. So yeah, he's cheap enough where you can do it on DK, but like Duffy's a 1K more, and he's like a legit like decent pitcher.
No, I like Colby Allard against Seattle in that game. With the cheap pitchers, they're bad pitchers. That's why they're cheap. So sure. I want to play the guys that are against the bad teams. So like Plutko doesn't strike anyone out. He throws the ball down the plate, but he's playing the Tigers, and the Tigers have a 3.84 implied run total. So if you told me Plutko at 6,300, I mean he could go 7 innings. Maybe he only strikes out 3, but like what do I need for that price? Obviously in that range, strikeout upside, it's going to be with Heaney and it's going to be with Ray. But I think those are the widest range of outcome pitchers. So for like you said, you're stacking the Giants because Ray could walk 6 guys and give up 4 home runs. But Ray could also pitch 7 innings and strike out 12.
He can. Yeah,
he can.
Nobody's got there's the range of outcomes game is that game, is it not?
Oh, definitely. But you can say the same thing for Heaney. Heaney could go out, pitch 6 innings and strike out 10 guys for the A's, or Matt Chapman and Canha and all the righty power bats could blow him up.
Agreed.
Plutko is kind of the same. Plutko is someone I stacked against last year all the time because he's not a good pitcher. He throws the ball over the plate. He has like a 48% fly ball rate, and he just has to hope that they don't go out of the park. But he's facing the Tigers. So, like, if you wanted to vomit stack the Tigers against Plutko, that's fine. Or if you want to play Plutko at 6,300, it's only because they're cheap. Like, I don't want to take Lance McCullers at 9,300. Like, I respect the Padres. I think McCullers is fine. I just don't want to pay the price. Or Lester or Odorizzi. Even Odorizzi against the Royals. Odorizzi is a much better play on FanDuel where he's 6,500 than on DraftKings. But do I want to pay 8,200 for Dallas Keuchel? Like, no. Like, why do I want to do that? Or John Gray or DeSclafani. Like anything in the
Odorizzi you can't play because he's 79 pitches his last time, 71 before that, only 2 starts, and he's 9K. They're asking for full price for 80% of the pitches. So I suppose he's almost fully stretched out, but I can't. And also that price, even if he was, I can't do it. I have no interest. No. Crossing him out. Who was the other one that was ridiculous? I don't mean to cut you off, but there was
Lester, 9,500 for Lester?
What are we talking about? Hurricane prices here on John Lester. That's price gouging, is it not?
Well, Lester, what you look at for Lester is that his ERA is like this year with these starts that he had is like 2.47 or something. His Sierra is like 2.5 runs higher than that. His xFIP is stupid bad. But I mean, we've been saying that about Lester for 3 years. There are many people that have stacked against Lester and failed. But to me, I mean, it doesn't mean I play Lester. In fact, the White Sox are my favorite stack to play against him. But I know what I'm getting into. I know if I stack the White Sox and Lester comes out, throws 6 innings with 2 hits and 3 strikeouts, that I shouldn't complain because that's kind of what John Lester does. It's either that or he walks 4, gives up 5 home runs. So to me, that's a wide range of outcomes type of game with rostering the White Sox. But Lester just does not have strikeout upside enough at 9,500 that you wouldn't find the 400 and play Nola.
I see Alex Santi in chat contribute to the RG Sharp guy. And I think somebody asked their favorite SB2. I'm pretty sure that's the question he was answering. He said the answer is Keuchel. Is that the answer? I know.
Okay, great kid. He's a ground ball pitcher with the Cubs, who are mostly ground ball hitters. So what? So he gets 14 points. What do I care? Like, I care more about strikeouts. I'm not going to pay $8,200 for the Cubs. I mean, you can't. I mean, I guess
no Bryant that lineup for what it's worth. No Mookie Betts either today.
Oh, for the Dodgers?
Yeah, no Betts. No Bryant for the Cubs. So the lineup is slight hit there, but still, Keuchel. I think he did have a start earlier this year where he had like an outlier, like 7 or 8 Ks or something like that. But don't count on it.
I think that was against the Tigers. Let's see who that.
It was my memory
against Milwaukee. Okay, there's a strikeout heavy team. 8 strikeouts against Milwaukee, but against St. Louis 1. Detroit, he only had 4. Gave up a home run, and the Tigers strike out all the time. The Royals, he had 2. So, like yes, is he, quote, safe? Sure, I guess. But, I mean, I'm not looking for, 12 or 14 points for 8,200.
What about
Vicious? I could, fine. 5,700? That's fine with me.
Are we buying that Chad Kuhl as a strikeout pitcher all of a sudden? He's got 13 strikeouts his last 2 starts. Of course, he's not fully stretched out either. He did throw 78 pitches last time. He's only 6'9", which is that's a reasonably nice price, especially against Milwaukee as well, too. I think he's leading off against Sogard, which is annoying, but everybody else strikes out. Again, on this slate, I think you can talk yourself into playing Kuhl. Is he in your pitcher pool?
No, the Milwaukee Bats are in my pitcher pool.
Okay.
But I understand.
Backing him up? Is that who's backing him up like the way it normally goes, or it's somebody else we don't know?
I have no idea. I have no idea what it is, but it's Kuhl in the Pittsburgh bullpen. And Milwaukee has lefty power bats, and that's who you target against Kuhl. So, I mean, but that's another type of thing, just like the White Sox, guys that hit it hard or strike out. So, like I'm looking more at Milwaukee and the White Sox as maybe I'll play some 5-man stacks, but they'll be mostly 3-mans and one-offs. Because, the bottom of the Brewers order now, Garcia's not in the lineup, Braun's not in the lineup.
It's bad.
So like the bottom of that order is they're just bad hitters.
It's worse than normally. Yeah. No, obviously Garcia, Brock Holt, Urias, Arcia, good glove. But Gamble batting 5th? Come on, man.
Yeah, but Gamble has a 40% strikeout rate. Or he'll hit a home run. It'll be one of those two.
I mean, their real hitters are Yelich and Hira. Smoke still has a little bit of power in his bat, but that's about it. I think Kuhl's a little bit interesting. I'm not enthused about it. I might get one lineup, 10% or something like that. I'm making 10 lineups tonight. He might crack one of them just because there's nobody else. Allard, what are your thoughts as far as Allard? You're talking about Texas. The other side of that game, Seattle's pretty terrible too. If you're willing to roster Marchevicius, you're willing to roster anybody. How about Colby Allard?
Yeah, I mentioned it before. I think Allard's fine. He's part of what Cheese would call cheap nonsense. But it's primarily not because I like Colby Allard. It's because the Seattle bats suck. So, I mean, when I'm playing cheap pitchers, I'm playing them against bad teams. It's not that I'm playing like cheap pitchers that could have a good game against a top team, against the Boston, a Dodgers, a Minnesota, right? Like I take a look at who's facing, like Duffy is 6,700. I think Duffy is a better pitcher than Margevicius, than Allard. I think he's a better pitcher than Cull. I think he's a better pitcher than a lot of these guys, but he's also facing Minnesota. So, you can play him. He could be in your pool, but I'd rather just target the pitchers that are just playing against bad teams.
Yeah, but again, that Minnesota lineup is not, they're missing some of their top guys. Dude, the catcher, I kept playing on FanDuel. He got hurt. Not really for the injury, but it's helped my DFS lineups because he was just dreadful. Garver. He's not playing today, and also their standard shortstop. I'm losing that name.
Yeah, Polanco's out of the lineup. They're batting Kepler 8th.
Yeah, I mean lefty on lefty, but yeah, Duffy kind of an average strikeout guy. Cave batting 2nd. There's some strikeouts there right at the top. So plenty of power, but of course he can strike out a good bit too. I'm gonna have some Duffy. That's just gonna happen. I'm not happy about it, but it's happening. Yeah, and like you said, I see you talking in the chat there, FanDuel Cash. It's probably Bueller, just because of the difference in price. I'm not freaking out about Bueller's sputtering out the gate, I guess you can say. And again, you kind of knew that coming along. He was not fully stretched out. Now he's basically there. 90 pitches sounds about what he's going to get, and that's what most of these guys are basically going to get outside of like the, who's Lance Lynn. I saw a stat. Lance Lynn, I think it's like 27 or 28 straight starts in a row. Lance Lynn has thrown 100 pitches. How about that one?
Do you get points for number of pitches?
No, but like when you're throwing pitches, you get points or you lose points depending on how those pitchers are thrown.
Right.
Opportunity though. I want the opportunity. That's the most important thing. You want your guy sitting in the bench, or you want the guy your guy in the mound?
Sure, but on this slate, I mean, but especially at the cheap, I'm going to reinforce the fact that it's not like I love these cheap pitchers. It's just that how much do you need for these prices on this specific slate? Obviously, if Nola and Buehler go out and pitch 7 innings, 10 strikeouts, if it ends up being like what Bieber and Kershaw did yesterday, where they both have 35 points, and then
probably not going to see that.
Right, you're probably not going to see that. So, like, if Nola gives you 22, and Nola Buehler put up 22 to 24, and you could get 15 out of any other pitcher, and then play the stack that goes off, I don't think you need a ton. And yes, you could make a case for Chad Kuhl if you want to play him, but I'm just like, I don't want to pay the mid-range. I don't want to pay for McCullers necessarily, or Lester, or Fried at 8,900, or Hauser at 8,400, or Fiers at 8,600. It's like, I want to go cheaper. I want to go in the 5, 6, low 7K range. Like Heaney would be like the highest, because then you could make like a Nola Heaney lineup and still get like good one-off bats. But I mean, but Plutko, obviously Ray could break the slate at 7,300.
I think Nola can too. Like, Nola can strike out 10. He's a guy that can get, the Kershaw level. We saw yesterday, the Bieber level yesterday. That Atlanta lineup strikes out pretty heavily. And Nola, this year specifically, last year I think it was like 27%. He was a K guy last year too, but not to this extent. Now we're at like 39%, which is insane. That's probably going to level out and lower to some degree, but say it levels down to 30. 30 is still really strong. They're asking about Hauser in the chat. Pretty good strikeout pitcher, 24.4% in the last 2 years. That's a pretty solid number. He's mostly stretched out. I guess we can say that as far as his pitch count, 86 last time, 77 before that, 87 before that. And he's kind of in the mid-tier, so I'm guessing you're just going to say no and Hauser.
No, he's 8,400. Why am I paying that for him?
Because that's what the slate's telling us to do. It's the nature of the slate that he's got to be at least in the conversation. Maybe?
Yeah, but I think I could get the same points from Plutko or Margavicius or Duffy or Allard or Ray or Heaney. I mean, like, if you want to play, I just think they're over. I think all the 8K pitchers are just overpriced.
But I can retort and say I can get the same production from a 3.5K bat than a 5K bat. And that's easier because arms are more predictable than bats.
Yeah, and based on the projections, the cheaper pitchers are better. The bat is free today. If you're not using the bat today, yes, the bat projections are free today.
I didn't know that. All right, maybe
so
Devin will
try it out.
In the chat for the people. Yeah.
But don't use it. Oh. Don't get the free bat if you don't want to play Nick Margavicius today.
Oh, is that the bat is spinning out for
yes,
SPT today?
That's the top point per dollar pitcher on the slate.
That is a sphincter clincher for sure in cash games. I like to get as many points possible on my pitchers, like that I feel comfortable with, and I suppose
you have to do it.
Yeah,
but if you're wondering where all my Margavicius love comes from, it's not because I just woke up this morning and said I think he's a good play. It's like no, I look at the projection.
Oh man. All right. Summarize the arms. Like we kind of mentioned all these guys in passing. It's pretty clearly like Nola is the best. Well, Nola and Buehler, 1 and 1A on DK. We both prefer Nola over Buehler. On FanDuel, the discrepancy in price for Buehler is enough to make Buehler your cash game guy. I'm not going to say you're wrong if you want to roster Nola, but because there's some good bats over there that are pretty cheap, and you could still get a really nice lineup with Nola for what it's worth. But you can't roster Trout and Cruz and Bellinger and all those guys, obviously. But give me a summary as far as the arms.
I think it's Buehler, Nola. If you don't want to bother with cheap nonsense, there's enough value bats on the slate, even on DraftKings. FanDuel definitely, but on DraftKings, there's still enough value bats that you could play Buehler and Nola together. I think if you want safety, quote safety, obviously, who knows? They could get blown up. You could play Buehler and Nola together. Just be aware that like I said before, in GPPs, that'll lead you to very certain vomit stacks, like the Giants. That lineup construction, like your 3-man to go along with that 5-man Giant stack, let it be off the board or something, because those are you have to see that the only way you can make you could spend 20K at pitcher is by playing those types of stacks. So that's why in cash games, go for it. That's perfectly fine. But in GPPs, I'm more likely to actually set a group that I don't play Bueller and Nola together and then go off from there. So I don't have that like vomit stack type of construction.
All right, let's talk some catchers. Reminder, I'll do my best. There's a question in chat to talk some FanDuel value bets. I'll do my best to get to that before the end of the show. We're going to go around the horn, start with some catchers. I'm happy to do the Bartman again. It's 2.3K against Ray. And I said I like the Giants, and I know full well, I know you're going to give the speaks now, that he's going to be really, really chalky. I understand that. But he's 2.3K, and I'll be different in other spots in the theory. I mean, sure. Anybody else? Well, you probably have the ownership up in front of you right now.
But it hasn't been updated. We have a lot of because Grandal hasn't been put in or Severino hasn't been in. Bart is not going to be 8% owned on DraftKings.
I'll take the over on 8.
I'll take the over on 28.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
I may even take the over on 38.
So what do you do with it? What about your personal lineups? What are you doing with Bart? Because that price is obviously
he's fitting in wherever he goes. I mean, it's catcher. I mean, the thing about catcher is that you don't have that many great options. So. Like Joey Bart at some point this season is going to be 4,000. So he's 2,300. Like he's 300 more than Cam Gallagher, and Cam Gallagher's horrible. Right? Ryan Jeffers from Minnesota. You could play him instead, but I mean, it's $100 more.
He's got low power. I never heard of the guy, but I was looking at him on Fangraphs today. I'm like, who's this Jeffers character? And I guess they called him up for Garver. But yeah, and he's cheap. He's cheap and he's on the road. He's probably going to get his 4 at bats. But like make an argument for spending up and being different as far as catchers.
Well, now you do that in GPP, if anything, or part of your stack. If you're playing a White Sox stack, you play Grandal. You're playing you can play Austin Nola as a one-off. Someone with power, Steven Vogt in a Diamondback stack. Vasquez is paying no one's going to pay up for Vasquez. Like no one's going to pay up at catcher.
You know whose birthday it is today?
JD Martinez
and Christian Vasquez.
Okay, Boston
and their teammates.
Boston was one of my conviction stacks.
Because of the birthday narrative?
No, I had no idea. But I mean, once I put them down and then I saw mention the tweet or whatever, obviously probably Alan Lem or something. He's the narrative king. Like, okay, and it's their birthday. I hope that doesn't inflate their ownership. I don't think the Red Sox are going to be that old.
I don't know what to do with JD Martinez because I watched him yesterday, and I hate being like I watched the at-bats guy. But first of all, he has not been that great this year. And he was dehydrated a couple days ago. He just seemed like bored. Like he didn't want to be there. That was my takeaway. Whatever. I mean, I understand he's an interesting play, obviously, against a lefty too. No, he's only going to get 2 at-bats against Means. Well, if things turn out the way it happened last time, only 1 at-bat versus Means, who didn't make out of the first inning. But he's there. He was supposed to be on a pitch count last time, like 50 pitches or so. But, not that they're going to bring in some righty. It's going to overpower him or anything. But I'm not really sure what to do with Jenny Martinez. It's basically my general thought. I know we're not an outfield, but just kind of throw it out there. I'm sure I want some.
I'll be over.
You're going to be over?
Yeah, only because some more people are going to play Trout and Yelich and some of the Bellinger. It's a leverage play. He doesn't rate out better than those 3 guys, but if he's going to come in at 3 times less ownership, then why not?
Give me some first baseman you like. Abreu, nice price. E5, nice price. You can play Ohtani at first base as well. The power of Sano. I love Bellinger versus Gray. Like those Dodgers a good bit. I'm sure that's on this slate at 13 games or so. They're probably one of the most popular stacks out there. And the Gray historically vulnerable versus lefties, and he's lost some velocity in his fastball, like 2 or 3 miles per hour or so. A little bit concerning. I used to be a John Gray guy, but I'm falling off that wagon pretty quickly. I think the Dodgers pummel him pretty good. Who's jumping out for you? Oh, and of course Wilmer Flores, versus a lefty. Cardi, I'm sure he's popping in the bat because Cardi loves his lefty mashers. But he is facing. There's one of your cheap value plays on FanDuel, by the way. I think he's like 2.5 over there.
Right, silly. But Flores, I think, is second base eligible on FanDuel.
Okay, yeah, okay, fair enough.
Right, on DraftKings, he's first base. I think you're flip-flopping DraftKings and FanDuel at first base. On DraftKings, you're playing Abreu over Encarnacion, and then on FanDuel, you're playing Encarnacion over Abreu, because Abreu is much higher priced than E5 on FanDuel, while Abreu is only 500 more on DraftKings. And with like Bart being 2,300, we're going to get to Austin Slater at 2,800. Like the $500 difference is not going to matter. I prefer Abreu over E5. But you could play Smoke at 3,300 against Cool. Matt Carpenter, I think he's probably a better play on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings, but you could still play him at first or third base at 3,600. I don't think it's a pay-up position. I think if you're paying up, you're playing Bellinger in the first base spot.
Bellinger, like, you're playing Bellinger and Muncy or something like that in the same lineup. Yeah, that's another thing.
Right, exactly. You're playing Yelich or Trout with Bellinger, and you need a cheap outfielder and not a cheap first baseman, so you could play Bellinger at first base instead of outfield. But I think sneaky play, because no one's going to play the Phillies against Fried. And I think Rhys Hoskins at 4,200 at probably sub 5% ownership. If he had, I mean, Fried hasn't given up a home run this year, but that's not sustainable. And he's not a bad pitcher. I'm just saying, as far as leverage is concerned, like, Hoskins is a power hitter, and I don't see many people playing him.
Yeah, no Harper in that lineup for what it's worth. And I mean, dating back to last year, Fried is a home run per 9 under 1. So 0.97 if you want to get all technical. We didn't mention Disco, by the way. I saw his name thrown out there in the chat, Anthony Discofani. I don't think he made it the first thing last start either. I don't know. He's just one of those guys. He can be fine. If you're playing 100 lineups, he's probably in my mix for like a pinch. Did you have any thoughts as far as Disco?
No, he's in the 8K range. I can't pay 8,100 for him. I'd rather play bats against him.
Fair enough. Play the lefties if you're playing bats against Disco, for the record. All right. Anything else as far as first, or you want to jump to second?
Now, second is a wasteland.
Yeah, but you have to roster somebody. Is this where you save some salary?
Most likely. I mean, obviously, you could pay up for a Muncy. You could pay up for Hura at 4,700 or Marte at 4,400, I guess, against Webb. But I think I'm more likely to like Colton Wong leading off against DeSclafani, a lefty against him, 3,500 on DraftKings. You could get away with complete punting and just go like Nicky Lopez or Danny Mendick.
Cronenworth
at 2,500, but he's facing McCullers. I'd almost rather could take a guy against Lopez or against Odorizzi or Lester. You could play Ildemaro Vargas against Duffy from Minnesota. He's batting 6th at 2,800. Marwin Gonzalez is leading off at 3,700. Abraham Toro is in the lineup for the Astros at 3,000. Even Scope against Plutko, that could be a home run. Chavez against Means. I mean, I'm just looking in this range. I just see, for cash games, I can't possibly see how you're paying up. And then you're paying up if you just in a stack that has an expensive second baseman.
On FanDuel, Stella, I think it's like 2.6 or 2.7, and he's probably going to bat second. So I like him as a salary
Probably.
saver.
We don't know. Joe Madden doesn't put out his lineups.
He's napping right now.
8:30 or something.
And Solano is 5K on DK, which seems kind of weird, but I want to say he's like 2.8 or 2.9 on FanDuel. So obviously a more appealing price on FanDuel. He'll be less owned on DK. Do with that what you will there against Robbie Ray batting second tonight. Jump to third. Hot corner. What do you have for me? Are we spending up here?
Well, I wanted to play Moncada, but he's not in the lineup.
No Johan.
No. I think it's going to be spread out ownership here. I think you can obviously play Marwin at third base if you want. Hunter Dozier batting third against Odorizzi at 3,200. Just understand his range of outcomes is wide. Like he's a power hitter or he strikes out type of, you know, when you roster guys like Rugnick or Odor, you kind of like know those, like you're rarely going to get 3 or 5 points from them. It's going to be like 10 plus or 0. But I think Carpenter is fine against DeSclafani. Longoria against Ray at 3,400 is fine. Brad Miller, another lefty against DeSclafani if you want. Jeimer Candelario against Plutko batting 5th for the Tigers at 3,600. Escobar maybe. I just don't see it being a pay-up position. I mean, if we sort by salary here, like
money's not a thing. My favorite play is Rendon. I'm not sure if you mentioned Rendon or not. Rendon, a big power bat versus Mike Fiers, fly ball guy, reverse splits as well. Right, meaning like he yields more power to righties. Rendon is a bit pricey, 5.3K on DK. I think he's 3.9 or so. You're locked in with those 9 innings as well, so pretty good shot. Well, if things are going really well, we got 5 ABs for Rendon. I like him a good bit. I'm not sure if I'm seeing somebody I'm prioritizing, but I keep saying I don't necessarily have like this is the guy, my favorite play, and that's that. But like if my lineup happens to go that way, a little mini stack for the Angels, which Mike Trout's really good at baseball. We mentioned Listella's kind of cheap as well, and Otani's got a pretty reasonable price too. I think he's 3K on FanDuel. He's like, 4 or 5 or so on DK. Pretty fair price on both sides. Longoria, again, I'm playing some Giants. Historically, really, really good against lefties. 3.4K on DK, pretty fair price. And also the FanDuel price is like 2.4 or 2.5, maybe 2.6. That's off the dome. It's mid-twos. What else do you have as far as third?
I think if you pay up, I'd play Jose Ramirez over Rendon. Well, because Ramirez has a way to score points that's not just hitting. I think Moustakas is probably a little overpriced, but I mean, if I'm paying up at third base, I'm paying up for either Ramirez because he has the jack in a bag type of upside.
There it is.
Or power bats. So like if you wanted to play Suarez or Chapman or Turner, I don't prioritize any of these like I just don't think I need to in cash games, especially. But if I get any of these guys as one-offs, they'll probably be in my pool. And if I get them as one-offs, so be it. But I think there's more cheap third basemen that are playable that could get you enough points if you're paying up in another position. I know I constantly talk about value bats, but that's kind of the basis of how you try to build at least cash lineups around. And then if you're deciding to pay down at second, you could pay up at third, and taking Ramirez or Rendon, perfectly fine. Or you're paying up at outfield or paying down at outfield. So I just like giving the options, but I'm not prioritizing any of the high-priced options in cash games nor GPPs.
No mention of Fried. That means then chat. I'm reading the chat here as far as YouTube. They're talking about nobody mentioned Fried, so pretty reasonable K rate, 24.8%. Not like jumping off the page, but perfectly fine for the slate. I think the problem you had your issue with Fried was his price, correct?
Right. It's just he's $1,000 cheaper than Nola, and like at 8,900. I need more upside. I mean, like he's in the same price range as Keuchel and Lester, and I could play Bueller and Nola together.
Ridiculous. He's right, better than Lester.
At that point, I could play the two top pitchers together. So why am I paying 8,900 for free?
Somebody's asking about Sogard. I know there's no chance I play Sogard. In
a Brewer stack.
I mean, I'm not doing that. I don't play enough lineups to justify Sogard. I can't do it. But I was going to ask you, does he make your Brewer stack, or at least one of them?
Yeah, he leads off. I got to throw him in. I don't want to get the Sogard home run that I don't have.
Well, it's not coming, though.
When it comes, I don't want to feel bad.
Well, look, feel free to tweet at me on the Twitter machine and then take the victory lap. It's not happening. He might have a 10-pitch
there is no victory lap. If it happens, it's pure luck.
Jump back to shortstop. I like I like Seager a good bit. He's one of the guys. Again, salary's a thing, so it's kind of tricky. You mentioned Lindor, or you talk about the Ramirez. I imagine you're going to pair those guys together. All switch hitters, basically the best players for Cleveland as well too, outside of Franmil. Santana, Lindor, Ramirez, all switch hitters. Even Cesar leading off switch hitter too. And Fulmer's not going to go very deep in this game. Who's your favorite shortstop, and who are the guys you're actually rostering because of salary?
I think the best shortstop on the slate is Tim Anderson against Leicester. 4,800. Is
he going to swipe it back?
I'll play Anderson over Seager.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wouldn't do that, but I understand why you would.
Right. I think Bogarts will be severely underowned against Means at 5,100. I think Nico Goodrum batting leadoff against Plutko. Plutko doesn't strike anyone out. So
contact pitcher.
Right. So like the Tigers bats, maybe not as a stack, but I don't mind them individually because it's just a product of BABIP. Are they going to hit it at a guy or not at a guy? But I'm not scared about the Tigers strikeout rate. Javi Baez against Keuchel is okay. He's getting some ownership because he's 4,100 and he at least could hit he could hit fly balls to maybe some extent, but I'm not thrilled about it. It's more of a price play there. But I think on DraftKings, I'm more likely to have salary to pay. I think shortstop is a pay up position as opposed to second and third, where I could find options that I like enough. It's just that if you pay down at shortstop, who are you playing? You're playing what? Sogard, right? I mean, you're playing.
I'm not playing Sogard.
Chris Taylor,
right?
You're playing David Fletcher at 4,100. I mean, it just there's no like cheap 3K guy at shortstop. So I think that's where I'm spending the money. If you want to play Seager over Anderson, go for it. If you want to play,
nobody's going to play tonight. Fernando Tatis, like nobody's playing that guy.
No one's going to play him against McCullers.
Yeah, I mean, just throwing it out there. A lot of guys nobody's going to play because it's a 13-game slate. You can only play so many dudes. But Yeah, and he's got the potential to bang out a couple homers. Obviously, he's going to go completely unowned. Let's jump to the outfield. Who's popping for you in the outfield?
I think the value play on the slate is Austin Slater at 2,800 against Ray. I mean, he's just a leadoff hitter, and he's 2,800. I mean, cash game, go for it. I think cash games you're looking at like Cole Calhoun or Peralta. Like, I don't think you have to necessarily pay up in the outfield. I think you're either paying down 3 times or you're paying down twice and then paying up for a Bellinger, Yelich, or Trout. Like, it's one of those types of bills. I think Eloy Jimenez. To me, Eloy's the top play on the slate.
Wow.
Because I think Lester's a fraud. I'm all in.
He's 9.3K on DK. How's that possible?
Well, he shouldn't be. But the problem with Eloy is that, the problem with the White Sox in general is that, they could still hit Lester and then like hit it at people. I mean, it's kind of boom or bust type of people. So Eloy maybe not in cash games, but I wouldn't mind it. But like a Jacoby Jones at 3,000 is fine. Hunter Dozier in the outfield, perfectly fine. Pilar leading off at 3,900.
Yeah.
McCutchen leading off at 3,800. Luis Robert at 4,000. I mean, there's options here. There's options in the 3 and 4K range to mix and match. If you want to play Winker against Hudson, that's fine. Brad Miller and lefty against DeSclafani. I mean, we have enough outfielders. Peterson leading off against Gray for
2.9K in FanDuel. That seems like a really solid. There is the chance he gets the hook if a lefty comes in at some point. That does happen with the Dodgers, but it's still a pretty good price, and he's going to get at least 3 ABs, I would imagine.
Right,
possibly 5.
But if you're paying up, I think the top 3 plays on the slate are Trout, Yelich, and Bellinger. But I mean water is wet. I mean, what am I? I mean, Yelich against a righty in Pittsburgh, give it to me. Trout against anyone, especially Fiers, who doesn't strike anyone out, and then Bellinger, a lefty against Gray, who's been horrible. So yeah. So to me, those are the pay-ups. And then if you want to get off the board, you go with a Cruz or a Gallo or a JD Martinez or something like that. Springer.
It's weird that Cruz is off the board. Like, he's facing a lefty, and that's off. Everybody loves Cruz versus a lefty, but we live in the world of a salary cap, and he's expensive too. And you can't just play everybody's expensive. It doesn't work that way. But you got to play him, and he's got to be in your tournament pool if nothing else. What are you doing with Baltimore? Because that lineup isn't great. Santander, they raised the price on him in some places. I think he's still interesting, and it's a Boston bullpen game essentially, and that bullpen is terrible. It's a positive ballpark hitting environment. What are you doing with Baltimore?
I mean, looking at their lineup right now, like that, according to the bat, they don't even project that well against the Boston bullpen. I mean,
which is weird.
But it's a price play that the Orioles have been priced up. We get Severino in the lineup instead of Cisco. So Cisco was like 3,700, but Severino's 4,600. We get Hanser Alberto is 4,800 at second base. Like, I can't pay that price.
I can't talk to that. Yeah, just
right.
Can't.
And then we got the bottom of the lineup. We got Mountcastle at 2,700. I mean,
he's a prospect, isn't he? He was just called up today.
Okay, well, play him then. I don't know.
I didn't know he was in the player pool, to be honest.
Well, he is. He's 2,700 on DraftKings.
Okay.
It just in order for me to stack the Orioles, I probably have to play Santander, Nunez, at least one of the catchers, Rio Ruiz. It gets to be the price where, like, I could play a better team. I mean, at that price, I could probably play a better team. It means they're going to be lower owned.
I got to cut you off, Bunner, because we got to go in just a minute or so. I did want to give out a couple of FanDuel cheapies. I think you can play. I know it's lefty versus lefty, but I'm not afraid of it. Means versus Devers, but Devers is like 2.7 or 2.8 over there. And again, Means is only going to pitch maybe 50 pitches or something like that. So he's going to see the bullpen for 2 or 3 at bats. I want to throw that one out there. And Encarnacion's 2.7, McCutcheon's 2.4, Hunter Pence is 2.2 if you're stacking San Francisco. I know it's not 2012, but he's still playable. Abreu 3.1 is pretty good value as well. Give me a couple stacks before you step aside and make way for crunch time with Roth and Cheese and Cards and Tuttle, 2 of those guys, at least 3 of them. What do you have for me?
Okay, my conviction stacks. Hopefully I don't go to jail. They're going to be the White Sox, the Red Sox, the Diamondbacks, and the Brewers.
I will throw in the Giants. He was Blender. I was Dean. This was baseball. Oh, and we're going to drop that link in chat for you people one more time. As far as the bat is free. Go ahead and check that out. Thank you, Derek Carty. We're out of here. Holler.